7. Hidden reasons people walk away. After 60, and how to keep them close. There's something about the golden years that everyone assumes should be filled with companionship, comfort, and the warmth of a loving partner. But what if that's not true? What if, instead of fulfilling the dream of romantic bliss, a relationship in your later years leaves you feeling more alone than you've ever felt before? Imagine this. You've lost a partner, someone you've loved for decades, and after a time of mourning, you begin to feel the pull to find someone new. You're told, you're still young enough, it's not too late, you deserve happiness. So, you venture out into the world of dating, only to discover that the loneliness you've been battling isn't due to being alone. It's because of the subtle, yet devastating emotional toll that comes with being in a relationship. How could this be? How could something that's supposed to bring comfort instead lead to isolation, stress, and exhaustion? Let me tell you about Richard, a 70-year-old man from San Francisco, who found himself in this exact situation. After losing his wife of 40 years, Richard, just like many of us, was told that he was still young enough to meet someone new. It sounded so comforting, logical even. No one wants to picture their golden years in solitude. And so, after 2 years of navigating grief, Richard entered the dating world. He met a woman who was kind, engaging, and easy to talk to. For a time, it seemed perfect. They enjoyed dinners together, walked in the park, laughed about things that Richard hadn't found funny in years. But then, something changed. The quiet joy he had found in his solitude began slipping away. Small disagreements that once would have been no big deal started to fester. The habits they both had, things that used to make him feel at home, now felt like chains, pulling at him with every passing day. His sleep started to suffer. What was once peace and tranquility now felt like tension that seeped into every corner of his mind. He realized with painful clarity that he wasn't alone when he was by himself. He felt alone when he had to lose himself just to make someone else happy. Richard's experience is not an isolated one. For many seniors, a relationship can quickly become a battleground of emotional stress, misaligned routines, and unspoken expectations. We often forget that relationships, especially in our later years, can be tiring. The constant need to please, to compromise, to care for someone else's needs, this is a weight many aren't prepared for. And let's face it, this isn't something society talks about. We glorify love stories, lifetime partnerships, and romantic endings. But there's an inconvenient truth that rarely gets shared. Sometimes, being in a relationship later in life can drain you in ways that being single never will. What if I told you that for some people, the best decision they can make after 65 is to stay single? No, not because they've given up on love, but because they've chosen something far more valuable: peace, self-care, the freedom to live life on their own terms without the emotional burden of constantly adjusting to someone else. And that's exactly what we're going to explore today. The 7 powerful reasons why staying single after 65 might be not just a choice, but the best choice for your health, happiness, and your heart. It's time we rethink what it means to live a fulfilling life in our later years. Before we dive into these reasons, if you're finding this interesting, or if you want more inspiring content like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Your support helps us keep creating valuable content that can change the way we look at aging, relationships, and life itself. So take a moment to subscribe, and let's continue this journey together. But now, here's a question for you, something I want you to think about before we continue. Have you ever felt that being in a relationship in your later years might be more difficult than being single? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. I'm really curious to hear what you think. 2. Emotional stress from conflict, the weight of disagreements. Richard, A 70-year-old man from San Francisco had spent the past 2 years adjusting to life without his wife of 40 years. The pain of her passing was still fresh, and the idea of finding a new companion seemed distant, even impossible. But his friends and family, well-meaning as they were, urged him to move on. "You're still young enough to find someone new," they would say. It was a comforting notion, one that seemed to offer a glimpse of hope in the midst of his sorrow. Reluctantly, after much contemplation, Richard decided to give dating a try. He signed up for an online dating service and soon met Sarah, a kind and gentle woman who seemed to share his interests and values. She was easy to talk to, and they quickly found a connection. In the beginning, everything seemed promising. They enjoyed quiet dinners together, long walks in the park, and shared laughter over jokes Richard hadn't found amusing in years. For a short while, the companionship filled the emptiness he had been feeling. It was a pleasant distraction from the solitude that had defined his life since his wife's passing. But as time passed, the relationship began to shift in ways Richard hadn't anticipated. The quiet joy he had once found in his own company seemed to fade, replaced by a mounting sense of tension. Disagreements, which had started out as minor irritations, slowly grew into larger issues. The easygoing nature of their interactions had been replaced by discomfort. The way Sarah organized her time, her expectations of him, the little habits she had, things that initially didn't bother Richard, began to wear on him. It was the small things, the way she preferred to rearrange the furniture, how she reacted when plans changed, how often she needed reassurance. What once felt like a shared bond now felt like a pressure that Richard couldn't shake, no matter how much he tried. The more they spent time together, the more he noticed the shift in his own emotions. Richard found himself losing sleep, lying awake at night, turning over their conversations in his mind, dissecting what went wrong. The peace he had once enjoyed in solitude was now replaced with a low hum of anxiety, a constant buzz of unresolved tension. He hadn't expected this. He hadn't anticipated that the very thing he sought for comfort, companionship, would become a source of discomfort. In those quiet moments when he tried to unwind, he couldn't escape the sense that he was slowly losing himself in an attempt to keep the peace. "I didn't feel alone when I was by myself," Richard confessed one day, his voice quiet but resolute. "I felt alone when I had to lose myself to keep someone else happy." The statement struck me deeply, and I realized how many older adults feel similarly. Many people in their later years enter relationships hoping for solace, companionship, or simply a reprieve from loneliness, only to find that their emotional well-being is compromised. They discover that the emotional cost of maintaining the relationship, of constantly managing the tensions, far outweighs the benefits of the companionship they sought. As we age, we find that our emotional resilience to conflict weakens. In our youth, we might have brushed off disagreements or misunderstandings with relative ease, able to move on without a second thought. But as we grow older, the emotional toll of these issues begins to manifest more deeply. What once felt like a minor inconvenience can quickly escalate into an emotional burden. The small disagreements that arise in daily life, those everyday irritations, begin to feel more like mountains than molehills. The energy we once had to recover from stress and tension starts to dissipate. Sleep becomes more fragile, and the emotional scars from unresolved conflicts begin to linger much longer than expected. Richard's experience was a sobering reminder of this truth. What began as a pursuit of comfort, finding someone to share his life with again, ended up feeling like an emotional trap. He was no longer free to enjoy the things he had once loved. Instead, he found himself navigating the complexities of compromise, trying to keep the peace at the expense of his own peace of mind. The quiet moments of joy he had experienced in his solitude seemed like a distant memory. And yet, there was a lesson in all of this. While relationships have the potential to bring joy, they also come with emotional baggage that, for some, becomes too heavy to bear later in life. The toll of these emotional burdens can be far greater than we expect, especially when we're already carrying the weight of years lived, grief experienced, and personal changes undergone. Richard realized that his emotional health was suffering not because he was alone, but because he had allowed himself to lose pieces of his own identity in an attempt to accommodate someone else's needs. The beauty of being single later in life is that it allows individuals to choose peace over pressure, to preserve their emotional energy without constantly having to navigate the emotional roller coaster that relationships often bring. When we are single, there is a freedom in deciding how to spend our time, where to direct our energy, and which emotions to engage with. There is no pressure to meet someone else's expectations, no need to bend ourselves out of shape just to maintain harmony. Instead, we can find a deep sense of inner peace by being true to ourselves. Without a partner, there are fewer emotional landmines to step on. There are no misunderstandings to diffuse, no frustrations to manage, and no unresolved conflicts to dwell on. It's about embracing solitude, not as a form of isolation, but as a way to nurture the self. Richard found that when he took a step back from the relationship and chose solitude again, he could breathe easier. His mind felt clearer, his body less tense, and his sleep returned to its former peaceful state. The absence of constant emotional turmoil allowed him to reconnect with the quiet joy he had once felt. For many seniors, staying single later in life isn't about avoiding relationships, but about choosing peace. It's about recognizing that, while relationships can bring comfort, they also come with emotional work that isn't always worth the cost. The burden of constant tension, the emotional weight of unresolved disagreements, and the mental exhaustion of maintaining harmony can detract from the well-being we've worked so hard to protect. Staying single means we can avoid this emotional strain. It means having the space to heal, to grow, and to find joy in our own company once again. The choice to be alone after 65 is not a sad one. It's a powerful decision to prioritize our mental, emotional, and physical health over the complexities of relationship dynamics. It's about finding peace in solitude, where we can be our truest selves without compromise, without the need to lose ourselves to make someone else happy. Ultimately, choosing singlehood is an act of self-preservation. It's about protecting the peace we've worked so hard to cultivate over the years, safeguarding our emotional energy, and ensuring that the second half of our lives is filled with the joy and serenity we deserve. Financial freedom. Avoiding complicated financial entanglements. Ellen, a 67-year-old woman from Chicago, had spent her retirement years carefully curating a life of financial stability and peace. After years of hard work, she had saved diligently for her future, making smart investments and planning for the long term. For Ellen, her finances weren't just numbers on a balance sheet. They represented security, freedom, and the ability to live comfortably in her later years. The comfort she had worked so hard for was her pride, and she had come to cherish. The peace that came with knowing her financial future was secure. But everything changed when she reconnected with George, an old friend from her youth. They had exchanged pleasantries over the years, but this time, their connection grew deeper. After several months of talking, they began dating, and soon, George moved in with Ellen. At first, everything seemed perfect. They shared meals, went on trips, and enjoyed each other's company. It felt like a fresh start for both of them, a chance to create new memories together in their golden years. But before long, subtle cracks began to appear. Cracks that would eventually shatter the vision of the peaceful retirement Ellen had carefully planned. Ellen had always been cautious about money. Her financial stability had taken precedence throughout her life, and she had worked hard to ensure that when she reached this stage of her life, she would be free from financial worry. George, however, didn't share that same mindset. His spending habits were carefree and, frankly, reckless. Ellen had noticed his tendency to make impulse purchases and the frequency with which he seemed to live for the moment without considering long-term consequences. While Ellen was meticulous in her planning, George seemed uninterested in the idea of saving or budgeting. This discrepancy between their financial outlooks became apparent as time went on. At first, Ellen thought it was just a minor difference, an occasional disagreement over the small things, like how they should divide household expenses or whether they should take another trip. But it didn't take long before the financial complications escalated. Her savings, which she had expected to last comfortably through her retirement, began to dwindle much faster than anticipated. The conversations about money that had once been manageable became increasingly fraught. Ellen found herself anxiously tracking her bank statements, unsure of where all the money was going. She began to resent the feeling of losing control over her finances. What was supposed to be a new chapter of joy and companionship had become a source of anxiety and constant stress. The weight of these financial worries hung over Ellen like a cloud. Every time they discussed their finances, she felt the tension rise in her chest. They disagreed over how to handle their shared expenses, with George often suggesting that they split things 50-50, even though Ellen was covering the majority of the costs. The financial strain began to seep into every corner of their relationship, creating subtle rifts between them. The carefree days of shared laughter and travel were now overshadowed by Ellen's growing realization that her hard-earned financial freedom was being jeopardized. Ellen's situation was not unique. Many older adults face similar struggles when they find themselves in relationships later in life. The reality is that as we age, our financial lives become more delicate. We're no longer in the position to make significant financial recoveries after a misstep, and the stakes are higher than ever. Most seniors live on a fixed income, and the margin for error is smaller than it was during their working years. For Ellen, the complications of blending finances with a new partner felt like a betrayal of everything she had worked so hard for. She had planned for peace of mind, for the freedom to enjoy her golden years without worrying about money. Now, that security was at risk. Ellen's story highlights a critical point. The blending of finances in later life is fraught with risks that many don't anticipate. Introducing a new partner into your financial life can lead to complications that extend far beyond shared expenses. Differing spending habits, credit card debt, and unmet financial expectations can quickly erode the stability that seniors have carefully built. Furthermore, new relationships can complicate more than just everyday purchases. For example, matters such as taxes, social security benefits, and inheritance plans can become tangled, creating additional stress and confusion. The financial complexities of relationships after 65 are rarely discussed, but they are real and impactful. Many older adults find that their desire for companionship or the fear of loneliness leads them to compromise on their financial independence. The emotional toll this takes can be just as significant as the monetary loss. Ellen, once proud of her financial independence, found herself in a constant state of worry, unable to enjoy her retirement as she had imagined. Instead of spending her time exploring new hobbies, enjoying her favorite activities, and nurturing her friendships, she spent her time trying to manage financial stress. In hindsight, Ellen realized that staying single would have been a far better choice. Being single means you have complete control over your finances. There's no one else to negotiate with, no disagreements over how to spend money or who should pay for what. You don't have to defend your financial decisions or justify your spending choices. You've earned the right to enjoy your retirement without the stress of managing someone else's financial habits. The peace of mind that comes with knowing your financial future is entirely in your hands is invaluable. For many seniors, financial independence is not just a matter of saving money. It's about preserving peace of mind. It's about protecting the stability that comes with knowing that your future is secure without worrying about how a new partner's financial decisions might affect your plans. Staying single allows you to retain that independence, to continue making decisions based on your own needs and priorities. There is a quiet strength in the ability to maintain complete control over your financial life. Moreover, staying single can ensure that your legacy remains intact. By keeping your finances separate, you avoid the complexities that arise when a new partner's expectations are not aligned with your own. You don't risk losing assets or making financial compromises that could affect your children or grandchildren in the future. In Ellen's case, her financial independence was not just about enjoying her retirement. It was also about ensuring that her savings would provide for her family and not be used up on expenses she had never intended to bear. The lesson here is clear. As we age, financial freedom is more than just a luxury. It's a necessity. Staying single allows you to protect the hard-earned stability you've built and avoid the risks that come with blending finances in a new relationship. You've worked too hard to compromise that security. For many seniors, the choice to remain single is not about rejecting companionship, but about choosing peace of mind. It's about making the decision to protect your financial future, your legacy, and your well-being. Ultimately, Ellen's story serves as a reminder that financial freedom is one of the most compelling reasons to remain single later in life. By staying true to yourself and your financial goals, you preserve not only your financial independence, but also your peace of mind. And that peace is worth more than any relationship could ever bring. Personal space and routines. Protecting your autonomy and comfort. Samuel, at 72, had come to embrace the calm and intentional life he had carefully built after the passing of his wife. His days were a reflection of years of cultivating peace and comfort. He had established personal routines that gave him a sense of control and identity, things that were important to him, especially after the upheaval of loss. Every morning, he woke up early, greeted by the soft light of dawn, and settled into his favorite chair with a warm cup of tea. It was in those moments of stillness that he felt grounded. His thoughts, unhurried and free from obligation, filled the quiet mornings as he read books that piqued his interest, sometimes fiction, sometimes history, and occasionally the occasional philosophical essay. Later, Samuel would take long walks through the park. The rhythm of his steps, the fresh air, and the beauty of the trees and flowers around him were a balm for his soul. His evenings were just as quiet and deliberate, spent watching documentaries on topics he found thought-provoking or reflecting on his day. There was a deep comfort in the solitude he had grown to cherish. Samuel's life was not just organized by a schedule. It was built on the principles of intentionality, where every moment was a conscious choice made for his well-being. It was a life free from the chaos of unnecessary interruptions, a sanctuary where he could simply be. This rhythm of living, established over years of finding peace in routine, was his own. It was his comfort, his identity, his way of navigating the world on his own terms. But when Samuel met Lorraine, a new companion, his peaceful existence began to face subtle, then more obvious, disruptions. At first, their relationship was a welcome change, a source of companionship and connection. They began spending weekends together, enjoying each other's company, and slowly, their lives intertwined. It seemed promising at first. After all, Samuel was looking for someone to share the joys of his later years with. But as the weeks passed, the tension started to build. Lorraine, with all her warmth and kindness, had habits that were different from Samuel's. The peaceful mornings Samuel had cultivated were suddenly interrupted by the loud sound of the television. Lorraine liked to sleep in, while Samuel had always valued waking early to start his day with a sense of calm. The simple joy of sitting in his favorite chair, reading in silence, was replaced by the noise and bustle of Lorraine moving around, rearranging things in the living room, and changing the flow of Samuel's well-established space. At first, it seemed trivial, even manageable, but as time wore on, Samuel began to realize that the very things he had carefully designed to maintain his sense of peace were being overshadowed by these new patterns. "I didn't realize how much my little habits mattered," until they were no longer mine," Samuel confessed one evening, his voice tinged with a quiet sorrow. The statement was simple, but it carried the weight of everything Samuel had come to value in his life. The small habits that had once been second nature, waking up at dawn, reading without interruption, taking quiet walks, had become the foundation of his well-being. Those habits, once taken for granted, now felt fragile, as though they were being eroded by someone else's presence. This realization struck a chord not only with Samuel, but with many older adults who, after spending decades honing their routines, begin to feel the intrusion of another person's needs, preferences, and patterns. When we are young, we are more adaptable. We move through life with a flexibility that seems endless, accommodating others, making compromises for the sake of relationships. But as we grow older, our routines become a form of self-preservation. We become less inclined to compromise on the things that bring us peace because we've learned how precious our time and autonomy are. For Samuel, these routines had become more than just habits. They were his source of comfort and identity. As we age, personal space and routines take on an even greater importance. They become a sanctuary where we can reconnect with ourselves, free from the demands and expectations of others. The quiet joy of solitude becomes not just a choice, but a necessity for mental and emotional well-being. For Samuel, the ability to move through his day on his own terms, without the need to adjust, explain, or justify his actions, was invaluable. It gave him a sense of independence that he had fought hard to maintain after the loss of his wife. In a relationship, however, those small personal habits often need to be adjusted to accommodate the other person. And for many older adults, that adjustment can feel like a loss, not just of space, but of self. The compromises that once felt natural and easy when we were younger now become a burden. It is not that companionship is unwelcome. It is the feeling of losing control over our own lives that causes the tension. The simple, quiet routines that once brought peace now seem difficult to preserve when someone else's presence requires constant negotiation and adaptation. The autonomy to live life on our own terms is something that many seniors begin to cherish more deeply as they age. Staying single allows you to preserve that autonomy. You can wake up when you want, without worrying about disturbing someone else. You can spend your time exactly as you please, whether that's enjoying a long walk in the park, reading a book, or simply sitting in silence. There's no need to compromise on your preferences or explain your actions to someone else. In this way, being single is not about isolation. It's about choosing a life where your time and space belong to you alone. The quiet peace that comes with solitude is an often overlooked blessing. For many seniors, the ability to maintain one's routines without disruption becomes an essential aspect of their happiness. Living alone, without the need to constantly adjust to someone else's presence, offers a deep sense of fulfillment. There is no need to negotiate over what to watch on TV, when to eat, or how to arrange the furniture. There is only the freedom to choose, to live in a way that aligns with your personal rhythms. For Samuel, staying single meant maintaining that sense of peace and self-sufficiency. It allowed him to protect the life he had built for himself, a life where he could savor every morning in the quiet solitude he had worked so hard to create. The joy of being alone wasn't about loneliness, it was about freedom. It was about knowing that the decisions he made each day were his alone to make, without the influence of anyone else. This autonomy, though often understated, is one of the greatest gifts that staying single offers. The ability to protect your personal space, your routines, and your well-being without compromise is a profound source of happiness and fulfillment. As we grow older, it becomes even more precious, as the needs and desires of others can feel like an unwelcome weight on our lives. In choosing singlehood, Samuel discovered a truth that many older adults come to understand. Peace isn't something that comes from being in a relationship. It comes from knowing who you are, what you value, and having the freedom to protect that. The power of solitude isn't in isolation, it's in the freedom to live on your own terms. And for Samuel, that was worth more than any relationship could ever bring. The caregiving burden. Why it's okay to prioritize your health and happiness. Margaret, a 74-year-old woman from Seattle, had always envisioned her retirement years as a time for peace and reflection. She had spent decades working hard, raising children, and maintaining a busy schedule. Now, in her later years, she looked forward to a quieter life, one filled with leisurely walks, afternoons reading, and perhaps a few travels to places she'd always wanted to visit. It was her time to finally unwind, to nurture herself after years of selflessness. But as with many plans, life had other ideas. Margaret met Ruth, a lively woman in her early 70s, at a local church gathering. The two hit it off instantly, sharing a love for history, gardening, and their favorite coffee shop in town. Ruth had recently moved to Seattle and was seeking companionship. They quickly became friends, spending weekends together and talking, for hours over cups of tea. Their bond grew deeper, and before long, Ruth moved into Margaret's home, much to Margaret's delight. At first, it felt like a natural step. Ruth was kind, full of life, and in many ways, her presence brought joy to Margaret's days. For the first time in years, Margaret felt a sense of shared purpose, a renewed connection to someone else. However, what initially seemed like the start of a beautiful new chapter soon began to unravel in ways Margaret hadn't anticipated. Ruth's health, which had seemed fine at first, began to decline rapidly. She had trouble getting around, and simple tasks that were once easy for her became increasingly difficult. Margaret, whose health had always been in good condition, suddenly found herself taking on more responsibilities. What began as a shared living arrangement gradually turned into a caregiving role. Margaret was now responsible for cooking Ruth's meals, managing her medications, and cleaning up after her. At first, it seemed like a natural way to show her care. Margaret was happy to help, feeling a sense of purpose in giving back to someone who had become a close friend. But as time passed, the emotional and physical toll of caregiving became more apparent. The tasks that once seemed manageable began to drain Margaret's energy. Her days were consumed with taking care of Ruth, and before long, Margaret realized she was neglecting her own needs. Her own health, once stable and vibrant, started to suffer. She felt exhausted all the time. Her blood pressure began to rise and her sleep became restless. Margaret had always been a woman who prided herself on her vitality, but now she found herself increasingly weary, her body and mind stretched thin by the constant demands of caregiving. The weight of the responsibility was starting to overwhelm her. What had started as a relationship based on companionship and shared interests had transformed into an exhausting caregiving role. Margaret found herself attending fewer and fewer community events, unable to find the time or energy to do the things she once enjoyed. The peaceful retirement she had dreamed of, filled with quiet moments of self-reflection and joy, had slowly vanished under the weight of constant responsibility. Her once simple and fulfilling life had become a series of endless tasks, from managing Ruth's medical appointments to ensuring she had everything she needed throughout the day. Caregiving, while often a noble and rewarding task, comes with a hidden cost, especially for older adults. The emotional and physical strain of providing care for a loved one can be isolating, draining, and overwhelming. What many seniors fail to realize when they step into this role is that the demands of caregiving can chip away at their own well-being. In Margaret's case, she had to come to terms with the fact that while she had been committed to caring for Ruth, she had neglected the most important person in her life, herself. The toll of caregiving is not just about physical exhaustion. It's also about the emotional and psychological burden it carries. It's about the constant sense of obligation, the emotional weight of watching someone's health deteriorate, and the overwhelming feeling of being pulled in 1,000 directions. What Margaret failed to anticipate was how quickly this sense of duty would consume her, leaving her with little to no time to care for her own health, happiness, or sense of self. The emotional strain of being a caregiver often goes unnoticed until it's too late. For Margaret, this realization came too late to preserve the sense of peace and independence she had once enjoyed. Choosing to remain single after 65 offers many seniors the chance to avoid this emotional and physical burden altogether. By not taking on the responsibility of caregiving, individuals can prioritize their own health and happiness. The freedom to care for oneself, to focus on one's own needs without the constant demands of another person's care, is a powerful decision. It's a decision that recognizes that at this stage in life, your health is invaluable. And while caring for others is important, it's equally important to recognize when it's time to put yourself first. Staying single at this stage doesn't mean turning your back on love or companionship. It simply means that you've come to understand the importance of self-care. You recognize that your emotional and physical energy is finite, and it's essential to preserve it. By choosing not to enter a relationship that requires constant caregiving, you give yourself the gift of time and space, time to focus on your own well-being, hobbies, passions, and health. This doesn't mean you're selfish. It means you're wise enough to understand that in order to care for others, you must first be able to care for yourself. Many seniors, like Margaret, find that their independence is their greatest asset. At this stage in life, independence is not a luxury. It's a form of wisdom. It's an understanding that preserving your energy and well-being is essential for living a fulfilling and healthy life. It's about recognizing the importance of mental, emotional, and physical health, and realizing that sometimes stepping back from a relationship or caregiving role can be the best thing you can do for both yourself and the other person involved. When you stay single, you have the opportunity to live life on your own terms. You can wake up each day knowing that your decisions, your time, and your energy are entirely in your control. You don't have to feel guilty about taking time for yourself or saying no to others. You can focus on what brings you joy without the emotional drain that caregiving sometimes entails. For many seniors, the ability to live with this kind of autonomy is worth more than any romantic relationship. Margaret's experience serves as a poignant reminder that caring for others is a beautiful and selfless act, but it should never come at the cost of your own health and happiness. Choosing to remain single can allow many seniors to preserve the life they've worked so hard to build, one that is filled with peace, independence, and fulfillment. It's not about avoiding responsibility. It's about acknowledging that your health, your well-being, and your peace of mind are just as important as the care you offer others. And sometimes, choosing yourself first is the most loving thing you can do. The fear of loneliness. Why settling isn't the answer. Karen, at 69, had lived in the sunny city of Miami for most of her life. The past 2 years, however, had been nothing short of a silent battle against grief. After the death of her husband, a companion she had shared her life with for decades, Karen found herself in a world that felt both too big and too small at the same time. Her days were filled with the memories of the past, but also a quiet realization that things had changed irrevocably. Although Karen had always been an independent woman, the fear of loneliness began to loom larger in her heart as time went on. She couldn't help but notice how many of her friends were still happily coupled, attending dinners and family gatherings with their partners. The contrast between their lives and hers became more evident with each passing day. Everywhere she looked, it seemed that others had someone to share their daily moments, while she was left with only memories of what she had lost. That thought, a constant nagging feeling that without a partner, she would somehow be missing out on something vital, haunted her even when she was surrounded by people. It wasn't long before the pressure to find someone overtook her. Everyone around her, friends, family, even the world in general, seemed to reinforce the idea that partnership was a necessary part of life, especially in one's later years. People would tell her, "You deserve happiness," or "You're still young enough to find love again." Those words, while meant to be comforting, only added to the weight of the pressure Karen felt. She joined an online dating platform, hoping to find that companionship she longed for. She met James, a polite and punctual man who seemed to be everything she thought she wanted: kind, considerate, and ready for a committed relationship. At first, the relationship appeared promising. They enjoyed pleasant conversations, had meals together, and shared small moments that made her feel like there was still hope for happiness in her future. But as the months went by, Karen started to notice a growing unease within herself. She realized that while James was a good man, the connection between them didn't run as deep as she had hoped. There were no shared jokes that made her laugh the way her late husband had. There was no spark that lit up her soul. They didn't seem to share the same interests, and more importantly, they didn't share the same values. Still, Karen stayed in the relationship. She had a persistent fear in the back of her mind. What if this was the best it was going to get? The thought of being alone, the very thing she had tried to avoid, was now a constant undercurrent in her life. She feared that her time was running out, and she convinced herself that settling, even if the relationship wasn't ideal, was better than nothing. Over the next 6 months, the situation only worsened. Karen found herself more lonely in the relationship than she had ever felt outside of it. It wasn't the solitude that had once felt like a space of peace and renewal. It was the emptiness of staying in a relationship that wasn't fulfilling her. Every day she began to realize that she had been prioritizing the fear of loneliness over her own happiness. Society's expectations had clouded her judgment. The pressure to settle down and find someone had taken precedence over honoring her own needs and desires. The relationship with James, despite his kind nature, didn't nurture her spirit. It didn't bring her joy. In a moment of quiet reflection, Karen understood what she had done. She had entered the relationship out of fear, out of a belief that being alone was something to be avoided at all costs. This was the trap many seniors, especially those in their later years, fall into. The fear of being alone, of facing the unknown without a partner, drives them to accept relationships that do not align with their needs. They settle for companionship that doesn't offer true connection, and in doing so, they lose the opportunity to create a life filled with fulfillment and happiness. Society often tells us that being partnered is the ultimate goal. It sends a clear message that being single, especially after a certain age, is something to be avoided. There's a stigma attached to living alone in your later years, as if it's a failure or a tragedy. But Karen's experience reveals the truth. Settling for the wrong relationship can drain the joy out of life. It can cloud your ability to find true happiness as it becomes less about the relationship and more about the fear of facing loneliness. Choosing singlehood in your later years is an act of choosing to remain single after 65 is an empowering decision. It means embracing the freedom of self-discovery. When we're single, we are free to explore our own passions, develop new hobbies, and deepen relationships with the people who truly nourish us. Being single gives us the space to rediscover what brings us joy, without the constraints of trying to fit into someone else's life or expectations. It allows us to live on our own terms, to move through the world without the fear of being judged for not having a partner. In this space, we can learn to find fulfillment in ourselves, rather than relying on external validation. Karen's decision to remain single eventually was an act of self-love. She recognized that true companionship isn't about finding someone simply to avoid loneliness. It's about finding a connection that enhances your life, that shares your values, that respects your independence, and, most importantly, that fills your heart with joy. Loneliness isn't about being physically alone. It's about not honoring your true needs, your desires, and your worth. When we settle for a relationship because we fear being alone, we deny ourselves the opportunity to build a life that reflects who we truly are. Staying single after 65 doesn't mean shutting yourself off from love or companionship. It simply means choosing peace over pressure, clarity over confusion. It's about taking the time to discover what you need in a relationship and not settling for anything less. It's about setting boundaries, learning to enjoy your own company, and living a life that feels authentic to you. When the time comes to share your life with someone again, it should be because that person adds value to your world, not because you need them to fill the space left by fear. For many seniors, choosing to stay single can be the most empowering decision they make. It's not about avoiding relationships. It's about rejecting the fear of loneliness that often drives us into unhealthy situations. It's about realizing that your happiness doesn't depend on a partner. It depends on your ability to honor and nurture yourself. When you can do that, loneliness no longer feels like something to fear. Instead, it becomes an invitation to embrace the fullness of your own life. By embracing singlehood, you give yourself the freedom to live authentically, to pursue your passions, and to fill your life with meaning on your own terms. The truth Karen came to realize is that being alone does not equal loneliness. True fulfillment comes from within. And sometimes the best way to find peace is to stop seeking it in someone else and instead learn to find it in yourself. Embracing the power of solitude in later life. After all that we've explored, it's clear that the choice to remain single after 65 isn't about avoiding love. It's about embracing freedom. For Richard, Ellen, Samuel, Margaret, and Karen, their stories show that staying single can offer more than just freedom from conflict, financial strain, and caregiving duties. It offers the chance to rediscover yourself, your passions, and your desires without the pressures of a relationship dictating your choices. Being single in your later years is not a tragedy. It's an opportunity to craft a life that aligns with your values. It allows you to prioritize your health, your personal space, and your happiness. For many, it means waking up each day with a sense of purpose, knowing that the choices you make are for your own well-being, not to appease someone else. In this stage of life, you have the power to create your own reality. Remaining single doesn't mean being isolated or lonely. It means having the time and space to focus on your emotional health and being at peace with who you are. It means nurturing meaningful relationships with friends and family without the weight of a romantic partnership. It means wisdom. It's about protecting your energy, maintaining your autonomy, and most importantly, honoring your own needs. As we age, we realize that time is precious, and the best use of that time is to spend it in a way that enhances our joy and well-being. So as you reflect on your own life, ask yourself, what do I truly want? Do I want to seek a relationship just to avoid loneliness? Or do I want to create a life of peace, fulfillment, and self-respect? If your answer is the latter, embrace it fully. Choose solitude not as a form of isolation, but as a path to freedom. Remember, the decision to stay single after 65 isn't about giving up. It's about gaining the freedom to live life on your own terms, to discover new joys, to grow in ways that weren't possible when you were trying to fit into someone else's life. Solitude, when chosen intentionally, can be the greatest source of empowerment. Life after 65 doesn't have to be defined by loneliness or the need for companionship. It can be defined by peace, clarity, and the strength to live authentically. The stories shared throughout this article remind us of an important truth. Choosing peace, independence, and self-care in our later years is not a weakness, but a profound strength. Whether it's Richard learning the value of emotional peace, Ellen protecting her financial independence, Samuel savoring the quiet joy of solitude, or Karen choosing to honor her own needs, each of these choices reflects the power of living life on your own terms. The key message is clear. Being single doesn't mean being lonely. It means embracing freedom, growth, and the pursuit of happiness without compromise. As we age, we deserve the right to prioritize our own health, happiness, and peace of mind. The decision to remain single after 65 is an act of wisdom, not solitude. Let's continue to honor ourselves and our choices. If you found this content inspiring, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Your support encourages us to create more valuable content and helps us keep bringing you empowering stories and advice.